Hello everyone, here we are with session 4 of the Solfeggio frequencies and Pythagoras. As you can see in this lovely little sheet music thing I've done with MuseScore, I can't seem to get my Sibelius one to work, so we are using another version. Okay, as you see up top, here we have the Solfeggio frequencies according to the pitches that are on this list. Let me show you the list again. Here are the 6 solfeggio frequencies. They're saying 396, that's in hertz, 417 in hertz, 528, all the way down here. Okay, so let's go to this lovely little music score. All right, so if we're taking these pitches, you're going to notice here I've got 2 pitches, and up here I have 2 pitches. That's because the hertz are going to fall somewhere between these 2 notes. They're not exactly on. They're going to be somewhere in between both of these. Now, a lot of people have said, well, they had a different tuning system back then. Yes, they did. We've had probably as many tuning systems as there are languages. And if you're in Eastern countries, they're going to be even different yet. The difference is we know that Pythagoras, he invented the musical scale in the Western world that we know in about the 4th century. Guido of Arezzo didn't come around until about 1000. So that's many, many years later, and they've been using Pythagorean tuning. So we know that all of this, the distance between the notes are going to be really similar to what we have now. I'll go back into another video here and I'll show you that in a minute. But first of all, let's just listen to this scale. Again, this is an equal tempered scale, and it's tuned to A440, which is our current tuning system. The Pythagorean system would be very similar, just off a few cents on notes as you get higher in the scale. So here's oot, re, mi, fa, or here, so, and fa. Okay, so that is if you are using the solfeggio frequencies. Here is the Pythagorean scale, slightly adjusted to make sure that it's equal temperament. Okay, let's go back and listen to the solfeggio one. I will play these first notes here because I think it's, well, actually I think I'm going to play the second notes when I do it because I think it's actually closer to these second pitches. So here is the solfeggio frequencies again. So you're noticing these are only half a step apart. This is a very large leap here, and you're not going to have that in Pythagorean tuning. They didn't have the ability to do it at that time. Here is another large leap. This is a small leap, and then again we've got a fairly large leap. It can be doable, but it wasn't at the time of Guido. This kind of scale did not exist in Pythagorean tuning. Okay, so let us go back and take a look at this again. You will notice up here again that we've got all of these different concert pitches. And there are some that will say that if you tune your instruments to A432, all of these frequencies will work. But as you can see, no, that is not true. In order for the 396 to work, you need to be somewhere in this range between concert pitch A444 and A46. Even with Pythagorean tuning or just intonation or well temperament, you're still going to be closer here than you are down here. So in order to get this 396 pitch, you need to be higher on the range of concert pitches. Again, the 417, as you're noticing, every one of them you have to be at least A440 above to get somewhere close to those actual pitches. Even if you're using Pythagorean tuning, just intonation, or well temperament, you're going to still be on the upper end of that. All right, now we're going to go watch my favorite dude, Howard Goodall. And in this particular one, we're going to go back to where he was talking about how Pythagoras came up with the scale that he did. And you will notice in this video he shows a wheel where there's spikes and there's differences between the pitches. You're not necessarily going to hear that as much, but you do hear it. Okay, here goes. This should be the spot.
To Pythagoras, music was the link between man and the cosmos. He even went so far as to claim that he could hear the music of the spheres and used to sing the tunes to his disciples. Since music came, he believed, from the heavens, it would be at its most powerful and mystical when obeying the natural laws of physics. So he set to work creating a scale of notes by dividing metal into simple ratios in what we can only imagine to have been some sort of musical laboratory. Pythagoras' teaching on the natural science of notes had a profound influence on early Western music. If you've ever wondered why we have our particular set of notes to play with, well, they were chosen first by Pythagoras. And he found them by dividing pieces of metal by 2/3. If you carry on dividing by 2/3 again and again, you create an infinite sequence or spiral of notes. Now, it's quite hard to visualize Pythagoras' endless cycle of notes, so we're going to build a spiral to show how it works, with these colored tiles representing the notes. The first note, red, is easy because that was the note we made from our original metal bar. And that's the foundation, or the base, of our spiral. By dividing that first piece of metal by 2/3, we were able to create a perfectly tuned new note. Call it yellow.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video here. Those pitches could be any pitch. We do not know whether they used 432 or whatever tuning system they used at the time. So keep in mind as you're watching this, we're not listening or looking for specific pitches. It's more of the distance between the notes, which, as you will notice in this, as you're watching him continue, that all of the pitches are going to be fairly close together. They're not going to be as far apart as what the solfeggio frequencies are showing. Okay, we'll continue on.
That goes in a bit higher up. The pitch of the sound dictates its exact position in the spiral. By dividing yellow by 2/3, we can create a third note, higher still and further round, and so on and so forth into an infinite spiral of new notes. The mathematical distance between them makes a rather satisfying shape. With the 12th note in position, you can see from above a pattern emerging with the notes roughly spaced around the circle of the octave. But when you get to the 13th note, it all goes horribly wrong, which I can show you if I collapse the model. Because the 13th note wants to shove the first note out of the way. This battle to occupy the same space creates a terrible and upsetting dissonance and is the result of something known as the Pythagorean comma. Pythagoras' solution was simple and ruthless, to do away with the notes of 30 and upwards altogether. But the problem of the dreaded comma was even graver than Pythagoras had imagined. It didn't just affect the 13th note, but the distance between every note in the octave. The distance between two notes is determined by tuning. To tune a note is to adjust that distance. For all the notes to work perfectly together, they would need to be tuned so they were exactly equally spaced, like the dials on a clock face. As it was, the comma shifted each note a little off-center, producing a slightly uneven pattern, which got progressively worse with each step of the spiral. To begin with, musicians played extra safe by using only the first 7 notes of the spiral, which, together with the original...
Okay, I'm going to stop this here for a second. When he's talking about to begin with, this is early as back in the 4th century. And if you're remembering, they did this up until the time of Bach, or slightly before that. You're going to see it in the late Renaissance. They're starting to add more notes and things to it. So what you're watching, or will be watching right now, this is the tuning system that was used at the time that Guido of Arezzo actually invented modern notation and was writing down all the chants. So continue watching.
Made up the basic 8-note scale from which the word octave derives. From the ancient Greeks right through to the Middle Ages, European music made do with the 8-step version of this Pythagorean scale. One way of keeping the troublesome comma at bay was to keep music as simple as possible, which is more or less what they did. Even as late as the 13th century, musicians were sticking to notes derived from the first few steps of the spiral, which they arranged into basic tunes, playing just 1 note at a time. In any case, much of it was popular music, made by bands of bawdy buskers thrashing out simple but joyous tunes to the rhythm of a merry drum.
Okay, we're going to stop that right here, and we're going to do more of this video in the next one. So as a recap here, you are seeing Howard Goodall is talking about how up through way past the time of Guido, the music was very simplified. It stuck pretty close to that scale. Again, with tuning, it's going to have some gives or takes with pitch, but it's not going to be as extreme. See all the difference between these notes here, this one and that one, and then again here to here. There's not going to be that extreme of a distance between all the steps of this scale. And you will see also on this, here is, they called it ut. It became do at some point. This is pretty much the scale that you are going to see in the ancient times of Guido. All the Plainchant is going to be based on these 8 notes. Every once in a while, you're going to add, as you get further on into the Renaissance, they're going to start using what's called musica ficta, which is they sharp the F or they flat the B, and that's to stay away from the interval of the tritone, which is between F and the B, which they felt was an evil interval, so they had to try to avoid that, and that's a whole nother discussion for a later point. So we're going to stop this for now, and then we'll continue on with the next video. Thank you. Talk to you soon.